Okay, all right, because I have another call. All right, thank you.
Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today I've got Laurie McCabe, and we're going to talk about some of the fantastic research that she's actually done. Laurie, before we get into that, tell people where you can get hold of you.
Yeah, if you want, you can email me, certainly, at Laurie, LAURIE.McCabe at smb-gr.com. And when Tim starts talking again, I can certainly type that in because I know that's a lot to remember. I'm also pretty active on Twitter. So, I'm just at Laurie McCabe on Twitter, and that's another way you can get hold of me.
Okay. And you're on LinkedIn as well, because
of course, right. The LinkedIn. Yeah, all of those crazy social media.
So just give us some background, some context about how you guys, why you go about producing this research.
We have nothing better to do, Tim.
No. Well, I'm sure you do lots of things, but I don't know about you, but it's something that I've always been given advice always to do research. That someone said it's something that you should do as a leading company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So SMB Group, my business partner and I, we founded SMB Group in 2010. So we've been around a while, and we've both been analysts at other firms, but we really felt like there was a dearth of analyst services and research and things like that around the small and medium business market. So that's what we focus on, that and what we call the mid-market, which is kind of one step up.
Yeah.
And, we do everything from consulting to the research that we're going to chat about, thought leadership and educational kind of pieces for some of our vendor clients. And we publish out a lot of stuff for free on our website. So I don't know if the audience can see the link we put up, but some of the research we'll be talking about today, you can just go to that link and see that. But there's also a lot of other stuff on our site.
And the link will be in the show notes anyway. That I'll put the link in.
Okay, great. And I'm just going to take a minute and type in my email.
And I'll put that in the show notes as well. So the report that you've created is called 2021 SMB Tech Directions for a Changing World. But more importantly, it's not just a snapshot of 2021. You've actually been doing this for a little while, haven't you?
Oh yeah, we've been doing research since we started SMB Group in 2010. So we always do a couple of very big syndicated studies, which means they're kind of publicly available studies. And we also do custom research for some of our clients as well. But last year when COVID hit, we kind of shelved we shelved the plans we had at that point for what we were going to focus our surveys on. And we decided to do something kind of immediately in March on the impact of COVID on small and medium businesses. And you can also take a look at that report. And I would say at that time, it was really kind of like the deer in the headlights moment for most businesses. And uncertainty and fear were really what was carrying through. And I think a lot of people were just, that took the survey, that was their biggest challenge, is really coping with that uncertainty and not knowing what direction to go in at all. And then in July, we followed that up with another look at how SMBs were faring and what they were doing. And I think by that point, what we saw was that some of the key impacts of COVID were starting to coalesce and become very apparent, such as we all know now, remote working and working from home, and new social distancing and safety requirements and commercial workspaces, and people's real preference, I guess, for not touching anything. So contactless kind of payments and transactions, and just the whole impact of cloud, and helping companies adjust and make the business changes they needed to make, whether that was to provide virtual services or help their employees be more productive or collaborate better from remote environments. So we started seeing a lot of things start to come together in terms of the small and medium businesses kind of taking in what was going on and then trying to figure out, how do I adjust the business and where does technology come in to help me do that? And then what we're going to talk about, I guess, in a little bit today is the latest study we did, which we fielded in February this year, this SMB Technology Directions for a Changing World. And so in here, we're, you know, COVID is still the elephant in the room. So we can't just ignore it completely. But I think we're also taking a little bit more in-depth look kind of at their longer term plans and what they're doing today and their longer term plans regarding some of the business changes they're making, and then how they're using technology to make those changes, and also where they are in their digital transformation journeys.
Because I remember a year ago, so we're recording this in April 2021.
Yeah.
So way back at the beginning of the pandemic, I remember dealing with an organization, and I was told there was a receptionist, and they said that no, nobody can get hold of their email. I said, what do you mean? She said, what I have to do is forward it all to their own personal email accounts.
Whoa, yeah.
And that for me was a signpost, which is, there's a lot of people out there that weren't ready for cloud or have the ability or the agility to actually work in this new environment. Of course, we all thought back in March and April of 2020 that we'd all be back to normal in June.
Yeah.
And here we are a year later, and we had a conversation before we went live about, well, are we going back? Are we ever going back to normal? So I think that one of the things that must have accelerated is cloud, surely.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we saw that very early on, that suddenly it was like almost overnight, you know, millions of people that didn't work at home were working at home. And that was kind of the first thing. You know, you had to get those people equipped so they could be productive at home. So hopefully you don't have to forward all their emails to their personal accounts, you know, get them set up with video conferencing and maybe Slack or other kinds of applications, just so they could, you know, do the kinds of things they needed to do with each other that they no longer would have any face-to-face for. And we also saw, you know, even, you know, in July, companies going beyond that collaboration and productivity to say, you know, I have all these people that need to use a certain application, so maybe for HR or financials or whatever, and starting to think about and sometimes even transition to a cloud solution instead of an on-premise one, because it just removes so many barriers. And we know from our research that adoption of cloud has kind of been very steadily rising, and this was, you know, pedal to the metal for cloud. And I don't think there's any going back now, because
no. Someone described it to me as a bit like walking into a room and the door shuts behind you, and it's like you're locked out and you can't go back. And I remember at the time seeing the figures. I think, you know, was it Zoom went from like, was it some 50 million to 100 million to 300 million or something in a matter of weeks. It's the same with Teams.
Right. And those are the ones that are very visible, but you know, we work with a lot of vendors as well, and we do know that from whether it's financial software, HR software, you know, CRM, customer relationship management, all of these vendors that are cloud native have done very well through the pandemic, because people just realize, hey, I don't even want IT people going in somewhere to, or I can't have IT people going in to set up systems and do all these things. And then, as you were saying, the whole issues with VPNs and other kinds of things, security, and you know, of course, security is a big one for SMBs always, or for all companies always. And I think that there was also we've also reached a comfort level, unlike 20 years ago, when I think for most smaller companies, they realize, hey, the leading cloud vendors are probably a lot better at handling and making this application secure than I would be if I was running it on premise. Because they've got all this security expertise and they're just kind of spreading it out over all their clients. And, I'm lucky as a smaller company if I've got, a small IT staff, none of whom probably have a deep knowledge of security. So a lot of things came to light with the cloud and people working at home and people realizing, hey, this might be a better way, right?
Yeah. So take us through the findings from the report, please, Laurie, and share that with us.
Yeah, I'll hit some of the highlights. I don't want to go into, please interrupt. Let's, try to make it conversational. I think it's more interesting. But, one of the things that really I was actually very surprised, but then I saw other information that corroborated this. And back in July, we had like 78% of SMBs saying that COVID had a very negative impact on their business. And well over half of them said that their revenues were taking a hit. Well, as we came out of 2020, so when we talked to them in the rearview mirror, in February, what we saw is that a lot of companies ended up faring a lot better than I think they thought. And this is U.S. only, so
yes.
I can't speak to other geographies. But 43% actually saw their revenues go up in 2020 right. over 2019. About a third saw them stay the same, and about a fifth of them said revenues declined. And this was certainly a big difference from the middle of last year, because in the middle of last year, the percentage whose revenues were going up was, I think, in the teens. So I think revenues kind of stabilized at least, and grew for some, and I really think a lot of that. Well, we owe it to a few things, a few things that SMBs really can't control, like the vaccinations coming out, and in the U.S., the PPP loans, which we know from our study as well that a lot of SMBs took advantage of.
Yes, I know a lot with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but also, and we can talk about this more. We saw SMBs shifting gears, doing things differently, like we talked about, to tap into really this changing psychology, whether it was consumer or business, of what people wanted to buy, how they wanted to buy, when they wanted to buy, where they wanted to buy, who they wanted to buy from. All of that was changing. And, fortunately, the businesses that made it through that really horrible time, and sadly a lot did not, but the ones that made it for those first 3 or 4 months, a lot of them were able to kind of recalibrate. And
certainly for me, what I've seen, and I mean, I run a global company, so is that it threw everything up in the air.
Yeah.
Someone said to me that they were launching a restaurant, and I went, "Really? Are you?" and they said, "Yeah, we've not ordered any tables and chairs because we're going to start off with takeout."
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it was like, oh yeah, of course. If you're designing a business today, you're not going to be building it on the platform that you would have done 2 years ago. Yet you would have started off with takeout. And certainly in the UK, takeaway is all of the big chains that KFC, for example, don't actually have a lot of drive-through in the UK, and they've been buying up land for drive-throughs, and that's the change that we're seeing. People are thinking differently, and they're building COVID out.
Yeah, and as it progressed, I mean, and we'll get into this more too, but the technology changes that people made. So I was talking to a restaurant owner in New York City, and obviously they had to completely shut down except for takeout. And then they could also have the outdoor seating.
Yep.
And then they could have indoor, but spaced a certain distance. So they had a back outdoor, they had a front outdoor, they had the inside, they had the takeout. Well, guess what? Everything had different regulations about how they had to do it. And the whole thing of booking and reserving, making reservations, they couldn't do that. They had to buy new software to schedule reservations,
Yep.
so that they could make sure that they, in each of these different spaces, they, they were giving people the space they want. They weren't overbooking, and they were adhering to all the policies and everything else. So I think, in a lot of cases, to pivot like that, and pivot is really an overused word, but to make all these changes at any scale, and this is just one restaurant, it's not even a chain, it's very tough to do that, without sometimes having something to automate how you do that, right?
Yes. My partner and I went out on Saturday night to get something to eat, and we're very spontaneous. Oh, let's go out and do this, let's go out and do that. Of course, we got out and realized
not easy to do in COVID times.
Because we're now able to eat outside. Of course, we turn up and they say, no, we're full.
Yeah.
We go somewhere else. No, they're full. And it's like no, you got to book on the app. So I said to Julie, I said, everything now we've got to. I know that maybe millennials and Gen Z see everything through apps. I said we've got to look at society now and life through apps and on the web. I know that we do that anyway, but we're obviously behind the curve here. So, and that must have made a massive impact across all of
everything. A really interesting one that company I talked to, and I forget the name, but they're a beekeeper company out in the Washington State area. And not only did they make honey, they have all these classes on beekeeping and all kinds of things you can make with honey. I have no idea. Soaps, lotions, whatever. Yeah, so they do all this, and it's not just selling honey, it's a whole experience around the bees and the honey. So when COVID hit, obviously they couldn't do all this stuff on the whatever you call a beekeeping place, a farm, I guess, a hive. But they quickly figured out that people still wanted to engage and they wanted to learn. As a matter of fact, people were starting to just take up beekeeping as a hobby. So they started offering a lot of things virtually, a lot of these classes and the ways they could engage their customers. They really expanded their e-commerce so they could sell a lot more of their products online. And I just talked to the guy that runs the company a couple of weeks ago, and now that we can do more in person, they are getting back to doing a lot in person. But there's still a big demand for a lot of the virtual stuff. And as a matter of fact, they were able to grow because people that didn't live in that area of Washington, that, you're not going to drive from, I don't know, California up there for a beekeeping class, but they got all this new business. So for them, it's going to continue to be, probably forever, a blend. And I think a lot of companies, took advantage of that in the short term, but they're also going to continue to take advantage of that over the long term.
And is this what you would term digital transformation?
Well, the way we define digital transformation in our survey study is, are you using technology to change your business model or change some of your business processes? So it's not just like automating what you have. Like we keep the books now with pen and paper, and we're going to keep the books the exact same way, but we're going to use software for that. It's more like kind of what we're talking about, that the restaurant owner that realized, I've got to accommodate different kinds of seating arrangements, indoor, outdoor, and keep track of that. It's all new for me. It's a new business process, and I have to do that to survive. So how am I going to automate it? Or in the beekeeper example, it's a situation of, hey, we've got to reach new markets and also make our existing customers able to keep engaging with us. How do we change what we do? How do we offer things virtually? So I think those are both good examples of, I think, people using digital technology to really help them change their businesses so they can tune in to new requirements of what people want. And I think as they do that, they're getting more flexibility kind of, none of us really knows exactly how things are going to look tomorrow, but they're gaining more flexibility for, you know, whatever comes next.
So we're at 20 minutes. Is there anything else about the particular the research that you think that you want to bring out to people?
Yeah, well, I do want to say that the optimism kind of continues for this year. So, you know, not just over the year-over-year performance, but I would note that the very smallest businesses, the ones with 1 to 4 employees, they are the ones struggling the most. So, you know, give them your love. Go shop with those small businesses.
Shop with them, yeah.
Because they're really struggling. They just simply have very little resources, very little scale, and they're, you know, quite honestly, the smaller the business, the less easily they can take advantage of new technology and put that to work in their business. But we
I urge people who watch this, you know, support your small business, go out and spend money, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, what I would say, though, is that it's important because we also look in this study, you know, if they're investing now in changing their business strategy, changing their technology strategy, investing in digital solutions, digital transformation, those companies perform better last year and their expectations for this year are better.
Yeah.
So, you know, to me, I look at it and I say, you know, obviously a very small company doesn't need to do what a 1,000-person company needs to do. But the important thing is listen to your customers. If you have employees, listen to your employees, see what's changing around you, and try to figure out, like your restaurant owner that said, hey, I'm just starting up as a takeout. It seems pretty simple, but often it is a pretty simple thing.
Yes. And
do those simple things. And, you know, it's not like you're going to be putting in a new ERP system, but it may mean you're going to have an app for curbside pickup or something like that to make it easy for your customers. So, yeah, it's important regardless of size.
Fantastic. Laurie, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. So just reading that it's SMB Tech Directions for a Changing World. The link to that I'm going to put in the show notes. Remind people where they can get hold of you. I will put your email address in the show notes as well. But you're active on Twitter. What's your Twitter? It's
at Laurie McCabe. And I'm also on LinkedIn.
You must have been in Twitter, signed up for Twitter quite early then to get your name like that then. So
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't get it for my email, but my personal email, but I do have it for Twitter. That came later.
And you're available on LinkedIn as well.
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, and I can send you my LinkedIn, or you can. You're LinkedIn to me. I can just grab it. Yeah. Actually, LinkedIn is better because I don't look at the DMs and Twitter all the time. Right.
Cool. Okay, Laurie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us, and good luck and stay safe. Because
you too. Thank you for having me, Tim.
You're welcome. Because I don't think things are over yet.
No, I'm sure they're not. We don't know what's coming next.
We don't.
Hopefully it'll be better, but you know, we'll probably due for a curveball.
Yeah. Thanks, Laurie. Good to talk to you.